The topics are hot. The discussion is heated. And we're on fire. The First Take podcast starts now.
Hey, here's what's coming up on the podcast. Which NFL teams will take home the AFC and NFC titles? And is Cam Newton now the MVP favorite? Plus, who will be crowned college football's next champion? That and so much more coming up. Were you not entertained? Another exciting NFL Sunday. Good morning. Thank you for starting your week with us here on First Take. Your boys both in house today. Skip Bayless, Stephen A. Smith, Molly Karam here with you. How we doing, fellas?
So what is this? Hate the Patriots Day on First Take?
No.
Is that what we're doing?
I don't understand.
Well, with all those highlights, you weren't watching. You were texting, but it's okay.
Actually, I wasn't texting. I was watching, but I don't understand how it's hate on the Patriots when all we did is what you customarily do, which is show the facts. And by the way, I almost want to faint because I wasn't aware that Tom Brady could actually make a mistake.
Really?
Listening to you, I had no clue that was possible.
You know what?
But now we learn something new every day.
I don't think he made one yesterday. That's just me.
All right, well, let's go.
You know what? I'm going to shake your hand anyway to start the show.
All right, let's roll.
It's one of those days, people, so you know it's going to be good. Chip Kelly got the best of New England, and the Eagles snapped a 3-game losing streak. Tom Brady rallied late, but it wasn't enough. The Patriots have now lost consecutive games for the first time in over 3 years, and New England is 10-2, falling to third in the AFC playoff picture behind the Bengals and Broncos, who are also 10-2. Stephen A., how much trouble are the Pats in now?
Well, I think, listen, I don't want to say they're in trouble like, oh, my God, they're definitely finished. They're not going to go to the Super Bowl. Because we all understand we're talking about the AFC East. We're talking about the New England Patriots. You're going to make the playoffs. You'll likely be in an AFC championship game. What's going to be the situation? The reason why I would say to you that the New England Patriots are in some degree of trouble, Skip, is because when I look at Cincinnati basically having the home field advantage for the playoffs at this particular juncture, even though I think that the Patriots will win a minimum of 3 of their next 4 games, probably all 4, now that they've lost these 2 in a row. Before I would have picked the Jets to beat them. Okay. But now I'm thinking they'll.
Wow, you're giving them all 4 in a row?
I'm saying possibly, but definitely 3 of the 4. Definitely 3 of the 4. Here's where I say to you there is some cause for concern. With Gronkowski out, with Julian Edelman out, Amendola dropped the pass. If Brandon LaFell, I mean, can you please stop dropping passes? Brandon LaFell dropped a few yesterday. I don't care how great Tom Brady is. He can do nothing if they can't catch his passes. There were at least 3 drops that I counted in the last quarter and a half. It's like, my God. It's like, and by the way, including 2 on the last drive when he was driving, when they were driving to tie the score. I mean, if they at least 2. I might have missed one because I might have got up, went to get my ginger ale and some chips while I was sitting with the crew. But I'm just telling you.
With that ginger ale.
I know that, but the ginger ale soothes my stomach. Settles my stomach. But I got to tell you,
you needed it after the Giants game.
I totally did. He's right. No, you're right. You're right. And we'll get to that. You're right.
We don't have to.
But I look at New England, and I just sat up there and I said, how in God's name is Tom Brady supposed to do anything with this? If you can't catch passes, what else did it do? Now, we all know that somebody will get fired today because they messed up in special teams. 3 non-offensive touchdowns, the block punt, the interception return, the punt return. I'm telling you something right now. Listen, Bill Belichick's firing somebody today. That's a given. Listening to Rodney Harrison, knowing what I know about the New England Patriots as well, just knowing how meticulous Bill Belichick is. Offense and defense, he understands, even though he's a perfectionist, he understands that mistakes come with the territory. He ain't trying to hear that for special team dudes. Trying to make the team, trying to elevate their stature within or on the roster, rather. He's not having that. So to make those kind of mistakes, to give up a block punt, to give up a punt return, okay, and for the interception return, you simply can't afford to make those mistakes. Those are not things that you can predict are going to happen to the New England Patriots, so it's an aberration. But the problem is we don't know when Edelman's coming back. We don't know when Gronkowski's coming back. And if the road to the Super Bowl has to go through Cincinnati, and both of those guys are not healthy for you, healthy enough to play in those games. I mean, if they play, I think they'd beat Cincinnati even at Cincinnati. Okay. But if they're not playing, and I got to rely on the dudes that I saw yesterday, New England, we have a problem. So in that regard, I would say to you, they're in some degree of trouble, but it's only because I'm questioning whether or not those guys are going to be back ready to go come playoff time. It's not because of anything else. It's because Are those guys going to be ready? Because if I got to rely on Brandon LaFell, I mean, him and Ted Ginn Jr., I just don't understand how y'all are NFL players and you can drop. How could you look your quarterbacks in the face when you drop as many passes as these two guys drop? It's unconscionable. So I just look at it from that perspective, and I say that is why I look at New England, and I have some questions as to whether or not they're going to be able to weather the storm, only due to health, nothing else.
Okay. By the way, Ted Ginn Jr. can still flat out fly.
He can get open on anybody.
He can fly.
And by the way,
he might be one of the top 5 fastest receivers in the league still.
In fairness to you, because you always say this, I am not putting Brandon LaFell in the same breath as Ted Ginn Jr. in terms of the ability to get open. But my God, both of them got hands issues. I mean, cheat. Put some stickum on. Put a glove with stickum. Do something. Anything to catch the damn ball.
I'll take the dude who can run and drop passes versus the dude who can't run and drop passes. Who is Brandon LaFell?
That's fair.
And by the way, I wanted to cut Brandon LaFell after this game yesterday, but I can't because he's all I got. He's Brady's go-to. He's all he's got right now. Unless it's Sean Martin.
And by the way,
unless he's just going to keep catching it.
Tom Brady, you point out, is usually Joe Cool.
Yeah.
I saw Tom Brady look at him at least 3 times like, what? No, I'm
he was frustrated.
He looked at him like,
he was just so frustrated out there.
How many passes can you drop?
I agree.
Go ahead, man.
Okay, so I got to get you on record.
Sure.
If it winds up New England at Cincinnati.
Healthy.
Let's say not healthy. Who wins that game? Without Gronk, without Edelman.
I think Cincinnati. If Gronk and Edelman are not on New England, I would pick Cincinnati.
Okay.
Because you're asking me to depend on LaFell, and I'm not doing it.
Okay.
I'm not doing it.
I would take Tom Brady over Andy Dalton in that game. I would take Tom Brady over Brock Osweiler in that game at Denver again, even with LaFell and Scott Chandler.
And I'm telling you, my theory is you cannot consider the quarterback when people are dropping his passes.
All right, that's fair.
You can't do it.
Okay, now back to Molly's original questions. I believe my Patriots, or at least I'm a Brady fan. I'm not as much Patriots as I'm Brady. But I believe Tom Brady's Patriots are in a little trouble, but not a lot.
Okay.
Obviously, yesterday was a shocking stinker. But you know what? I like the way it started, 14-0 Patriots. And I actually, and it was a shock to me, I like the way it finished. Because Tom Brady did not give up. I wrote that game off. I thought that was going to be a debacle on the order of 45-14 at Kansas City on Monday Night Football. Right. Remember when they fell to 2-2 last year? And I never love it when a team stinks it up in December, because this is when you should be taking shape for liftoff here, where you're coming together and starting to get on a Super Bowl roll. So I don't love that. But I did love the way the Patriots did not quit in that game. And remember, in the end, Tom Brady had a real shot in that game. We had not 1 or 2 or 3. We had 3 drop passes. And if we could see those real quick at the end of this game, on first down, LaFell runs a fly pattern, and I don't know what happened. Halfway through it, he sort of slowed up for a second. And I'm saying, here it is. Brady throws it right where he should have been. He stopped just for a second.
Yes, he did.
He had a step. And again,
the ball.
It looks like when Brady let it go, I thought, wait a second, it's going to be a tie game. Nope, it's not a tie game. Then LaFell drops a slant right over the middle that I think he could have gone a little farther with. And then Amendola in the flat, who did not look 100% to me yesterday, he drops one right there, a little high, but right there over his head.
But the one in the flat that LaFell dropped was the most egregious.
It was terrible.
I mean, because he could have scared.
And then, once again, Brady clutches up on the last play of the game and hits Keyshawn Martin over the middle, and he can't hang on to it.
Yes.
Well, I don't know. It felt like Brady was ready to do it again, and he had no help. He had zero help.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
He had zero protection. Okay, now back to this football game.
Okay.
To me, this was a fluky, funky debacle, the kind that you write off because of all the reasons you just said. If you're going to hand a visiting team, even one that had been so pathetic for the last 3 weeks, giving up in the last 2 weeks, 45, 5 touchdown passes. If you're going to give them a block punt touchdown, and then you're going to give them an 83-yard punt return touchdown, and then you're going to give them what I thought was an unlucky pick six because Brady tried to force it into a tight window to Amendola. Walter Thurman comes from the offside and ticks it, just tipped it up, and it goes right to Byron Maxwell, and he's looking around like, wait a second, nobody's home. And I'm running. I thought he went 100 yards. They said it was 99. But it's just fluky. It's just one of those things. You're going to have one of those during the season. If you get all 3 of those things together in one game, you're going to lose at home. They gave up 35 unanswered points. I have no idea how they got back into that game, but they did.
Well, how about Zach Ertz not holding on to the onside kick?
Yeah.
I mean, after they scored a touchdown, he botches the onside kick. New England gets the ball back. But in the end, again, what it comes down to, whether it's Amendola, whether it's LaFell, whether it doesn't matter. If guys ain't catching the ball, Skip, that's fluky. And by the way, who assumes that the New England Patriots are ever going to find themselves in a position where they surrender 35 unanswered?
It's just.
Who assumes that?
It's just
and have Sam Bradford looking like he can quarterback. I mean, come on.
Although did he? Because remember, the total yards in the game were 427 for New England and 248 for Bradford's offense.
That was a big time. That was a big time pass to Jordan Matthews for that first down to seal the deal.
I agree. No, that was to Riley Cooper.
It was right. Well, I thought it was.
Which one? The late one?
Jordan Matthews, but the late one was the Riley Cooper.
Okay. And by the way, I got to give Riley. I'm hard on Riley Cooper. He showed up for other reasons.
He showed up.
Listen, on the second onside kick, which I would not have done. I'm not Bill Belichick. I'm not. He's the greatest. But the second, why do you onside kick a second time with 3 minutes left in the game? And they had Ebner do the sort of reverse onside, and Riley Cooper goes up and knocks it out of bounds because I think a Patriot might have caught it near the sideline.
Smart play on the spot. Smart play on the spot.
So in the end, to me, I'm going to write this one off. I still say I expect Gronkowski to come back relatively healthy in a week or two. I won't be shocked if he plays at Texans next Sunday night. 2 weeks maybe for Tennessee, 2 weeks, somewhere in there. And if he comes back relatively healthy, I think they can win the Super Bowl still.
But the question that I have for you, Skip, is this. Should Belichick not have not exercise or employ the Popovich theory so far? Don't care about the regular season. We're going to win with or without these guys. We can win at least 2 more of these games.
Yep.
We're going to lock up a top 2 seed in the AFC. If we pull that off, isn't it more important to have Gronkowski completely healthy than to rush him back to ensure that you got home field advantage for Foxborough? If it were Andy Dalton or somebody and I'm Marvin Lewis, then I make the call to do everything that I can to get home field advantage. But if I've got Tom Brady and this experienced bunch, why would I prioritize?
You could be right.
The New England Patriots getting the #1 seed in the AFC when my priority should be getting Julian Edelman and Rob Gronkowski completely healthy and ready to go come playoff time.
You could be right about that, except, would I prefer to see them in Foxborough for all the way through? Sure, I would. But again.
Why? I mean, why does it matter to you? I've seen that, unless you want to point to the AFC against Denver a few years ago. I've seen the Patriots go on the road and win.
I know, but if it were still Peyton Manning, I would be fearful of Peyton Manning's Denver. I'm not that fearful of Brock Osweiler's. And in the bigger picture, if it were anybody like Andy Dalton in the playoffs, with all that pressure on him at home, I still like Tom Brady in that game. So I'm kind of with where you're going. The team that scares me the most right now is your Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah, you should be scared of
that. Is an explosive offense.
The thing about it, let me tell you real quickly about the Pittsburgh Steelers. What I love about them offensively is that they have the kind of high-powered offense that can, simply outscore you a la Dan Fouts, Kellen Winslow, Charlie Joyner, Chuck Muncie from those days in the 80s when they had Air Coryell, or the greatest show on turf with Mike Martin, Vermeil, and those boys. You can either have that, and that kind of impact, or it can be that their offense is so high-powered that it demoralizes you because offensively it applies more pressure to you because you know you have to score because you simply can't stop them. But I have no faith in the Pittsburgh Steelers secondary at all. I've got faith in their front seven.
I'm with you on that.
I have no faith in their secondary. You can throw the football on them. About the best thing you can say about the Steelers secondary is that they are not the pathetic, hapless New York Giants.
No, I agree with you. So it could come full circle. What goes around could come back around. Opening night, remember this, at Foxborough, Big Ben's Pittsburgh Steelers. Brady just went off on him, but it was still fairly close. It wound up, I think, 28-21.
28-21.
Yeah.
I would say this. I have no faith in the Steelers if they go to Foxborough. I got a lot more faith in them if they're at Heinz Field.
Well,
in Pittsburgh.
The Patriots need to make sure that doesn't happen.
Right.
Tom Brady's resolve, though, again, is just incredible. just amazes me every week. But I mean, watching that game, he almost tied it up. It is remarkable with no weapons. His will, it's just incredible.
It's
way to go, Molly.
It's
Love
special. It's nice for you to say that, Miss Connecticut. But here's the deal.
Keep talking, Molly. I love it.
But here's the deal. There was a 99-yard interception return that happened on Tom Brady. I love how you spoke and you gave your soliloquy and your points, all valid. But you really didn't touch on that.
I did too.
He even ran a passing route.
I didn't say you mentioned it, but you mentioned it as an aside, like, well, anyway, and I'm like, wait a minute.
It was a little fluky.
Had that been Aaron Rodgers, I would have heard something different, is all I'm trying to say. I would have heard something different. Now, I'm going to let you get away with it because I agree with you. But if it had been Aaron Rodgers, let the record show that you would have been significantly different. Your tenor, your everything about your tenor, your action, everything would have been different.
But we have to grade Aaron Rodgers on a far higher scale than Tom Brady because you keep telling me he is the greatest you've ever seen as a passer. You've never seen anything like Aaron Rodgers.
I have not
seen.
So
I have to.
That's fair.
I have to raise my standards for Aaron Rodgers.
All right. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
And that's your excuse.
I didn't mean to start something. I just wanted to say I'm impressed with Brady.
That's your excuse, but we all know you just want to hate on that bad man.
And by the way,
Aaron Rodgers.
Brady's other interception that he threw into the end zone after he caught the pass. Remember that? Okay, that was LaFell stopping. Yes. You know, he thought LaFell was going deep.
I understand.
I didn't even see that live because I kept rewinding the catch. I was behind.
I saw it. That was good. The catch.
It was ridiculous. I just thought of Giselle being like, my husband can throw and catch the ball at the same time.
He can do both.
You know who showed no resolve? The New York Football Giants. They looked sorry. Little brother prevailed in overtime for the first time in over 20 years. Leave it to the New York Daily News for a fitting headline. Blew it again. The fifth time this season, the G-men were leading in the final 2 minutes of the game and couldn't close it out. Now they fall to third in the NFC East behind the Redskins and Eagles. Who came up with this question? Skip? Are the Giants done?
I got bad news for both of you.
Oh, whatever.
You Giants fans.
Quasi
and full-blooded. Your Giants are D-O-N-E. Done. J-E-T-S. Jets. D-O-N-E. Done. Thank you, Jets.
You're wrong for that
for eliminating the New York Football Giants and giving my Cowboys a little life support breath of life. They're still hanging on. They are. It's unbelievable to me. Here's why your Giants are done. They are on course to have the worst defense in the history of your storied franchise. And your quarterback, when you least expect it, is still an accident waiting to happen. Accidents happen all over the place in the fourth quarter with Eli Manning. I don't know what it is because he's having one of his better years, but when you least expect it, when you need it least, Eli will throw it to the other team. That is 5 fourth-quarter leads they have coughed up. 3 double-digit fourth-quarter leads they have coughed up. And I, for one, I had absolutely no problem with Tom Coughlin going for the throat, going for the kill on 4th and 2 at the 4-yard line with 8:39 left in the football game. Because your defense is so bad. Tom Coughlin's thinking, I need a 17-point lead here because I don't think we can hold it. What has history told you this year? They cannot hold leads. So he said, you know what? I'm going for it here. I don't blame him. None of the players blame him. They all loved it.
I blame him.
And right on schedule, Eli is crazy Eli. He's looking around. Oh, he throws it to, who's this guy? I don't even know who he is. Rontez Miles. I wasn't even sure he was. Like a backup safety. He throws it right to him. What? Now, I don't know if Reuben Randall stopped on the route. I don't know what happened.
He did. But, okay. That was Reuben Randall. That was on Reuben Randall.
Well, I don't know whose fault it was. Right. You know, they wouldn't say after the game.
I was watching.
Okay.
It was on Reuben Randall.
But my point is, Ryan Fitzpatrick was in the midst of throwing for 390 yards. It took overtime. 390 yards. That is the best Jets quarterback passing day in 15 years since Vinny Testaverde in 2000. Are you kidding me? And it was a Giants home game. It should have been majority Giants crowd. I saw a lot of Jets fans, but whatever. But it's their season ticket holders had the tickets. So in the end, I look at the schedule. They go to Miami. That could still be dicey. Then they got Carolina at home. That's real dicey. Then they go to Minnesota. I don't know about that. And then they get the Eagles at home. They are going to lose at least 2 of those games. And I told you last week, the Giants they got the worst record in the division, 2-3. So I don't think they can catch up enough in the division, even with one more division win, to get to 3-3, to keep them. Let's say everybody finishes at 7-9, which is distinctly possible right now. I still think the Giants are on course to lose the tiebreaker. So they are D-O-N-E, done. Thank you.
I respectfully disagree only because I believe it is premature. I do recognize the fact that the Giants have the worst passing defense in the NFL. They rank dead last. They're second to last in yards allowed because of what they give up in the air. It is pathetic. The fact that Tom Coughlin, his signature is defense, and this has been allowed to happen. As far as I'm concerned, he is on the clock. He will not be the head coach next year. By the way, Jerry Reese, who I like a lot.
I know you do.
Bottom line is there's no way around it. If you talk about Tom Coughlin, how can you not talk about Jerry Reese? Because the reality of the situation is clear. When you look at Odell Beckham Jr. and the sensational performance that he puts forth, even though he's got to keep his head in the game because that was a costly penalty when you're kicking the football.
It nearly cost the game. I thought it was.
It nearly cost him the game. That's just idiotic on his part.
You have no idea how mad I was. You have no idea how stressful. Sorry, Stephen.
Six receptions for 149 yards. I look at him and I say to myself, boy, did he save Jerry Reese, because he's such a sensational pick that it's glossed over the number of picks that haven't been that impressive. Somebody mentioned to me, and I need to double check this because I don't know definitively, but I remember, you know, that Jerry Reese, of all the picks that he's drafted, who has signed a second contract under him out of all the draft picks? I think that's an interesting stat to look up because it speaks to the level of talent or lack thereof that he's given Tom Coughlin to work with. But it also speaks to Tom Coughlin because I'm looking at the New York Giants, and season after season after season, even once when they won the Super Bowl, they were 9-7. And now you're talking about the possibility of them. Somebody can go 8-8 and win the NFC East.
Well, that might win it going away.
I'm just saying that's how pathetic the division is. Here's the reason why I haven't closed the door on the New York Giants. The New York Giants, because of their offensive arsenal, even though Ruben Randall, it would be nice if you showed up 2 receptions for 22 yards. Could you help Odell Beckham Jr. out just a little bit? Pretty please with sugar on top. That would really be nice. Having said all of that, when you look at the Giants and their potential offensive prowess, do I believe they're going to beat Carolina? Hell no. But are they the kind of team that can surprise you and show up on a Sunday afternoon and pull that off? Yes, they are. You've got Miami coming up. Could you beat Miami? Absolutely. You could probably, you might lose to Miami. You could beat Miami. Then you've got Minnesota. We saw how Minnesota wet the bed yesterday. If you neutralize Adrian Peterson, Mr. 18 yards rushing on 8 carries, if you neutralize him, who knows what you could do to Minnesota, but we'll revisit that in a minute.
Yeah, but they might turn Teddy Bridgewater back into Joe Montana.
There you go. So we'll visit that.
Might.
But we'll visit that. Here's where your Cowboys are finished, and you don't even need to give life to anybody. Let's erase that thought, that notion right now.
Don't give people hope, Skip.
Chances are,
I didn't say a word.
Hear me out. Chances are, Philadelphia and the New York Giants will be at least a game ahead of Dallas by the time the last game of the season arrives.
At least one game ahead?
About one game. So what I'm saying is, listen to me.
Okay.
They got to play each other, which means one of them win.
Okay.
That's where the Dallas Cowboys are finished. Because if the Eagles and the Giants were not on one another's schedule, you'd have a point. But the fact that 2 teams in front of the Cowboys play one another, and you've got the Redskins still in a position to really put the nail in the coffin to the Cowboys tonight.
Yep.
Dallas has no shot. So that's where we are.
So just a question, just so I'm thinking straight.
Right.
Help me out here. I'm not very good at math. So if my Cowboys somehow, improbably, shockingly, against all odds, won at Washington tonight, I'm not predicting it. I'm just saying if they did, am I right they'd only be one game back?
Yes.
Okay, so wouldn't that make them statistically still alive?
No,
right?
I'm saying statistically they're still alive.
Yep.
I'm saying theoretically speaking, what you and I are talking.
Yep.
I know mathematically and statistically they're still alive. I'm simply saying to you the fact that the Eagles and the Giants are on one another's schedule, I presume they'll be ahead of the Cowboys. And since one of them has to win the game, I'm not predicting a tie. At the end of the day, that leaves your Cowboys on the outside looking in. In the end, that means to me that the Giants are not finished. I could see how you predicting that they'll lose at least 2 of these games. I'm actually with you, but it is possible they could win 3.
Okay.
I need to say one more thing that just was hard for me to watch. Forget them not kicking the field goal. Seeing JPP not be able to be JPP. The couple times when he couldn't.
Had a sack
I
with
know.
the wrong hand and he couldn't hold on.
That was really hard
Here's
to
the
watch.
other thing,
That
too.
was hard to stomach.
The New
as a
York
Giants fan.
Giants have played 12 games this year. They have 15 sacks. I mean, that's just no pass rush.
And by the way,
that's no pass rush.
I got to remind both of you.
None.
They have now lost 4 of their last 5. That's not a good sign. I got to tell you.
They've lost 4 of their last 5.
Terrible
and
clock
the New
management.
York Giants can't get to the quarterback.
Okay.
When has that happened?
All right. So now back to the bottom line, and I haven't heard that. I'm going to go on record here. Washington is still in the driver's seat in the NFC East because they get my pathetic Cowboys twice, tonight and season finale. And my Romo-less Cowboys shouldn't be much of a problem for the Washington Redskins. Obviously,
I can see Dallas pulling off a miracle and winning one of those games.
Okay, but they get them twice, so they get the worst team in the division twice. They get to go to Chicago. Bears blew a pathetic game yesterday with a missed field goal. Then they get Buffalo at home. They go to Philadelphia. Then they go to Dallas. Dallas is worse at home than they are on the road.
And I'm just saying to you, one loss by the Dallas Cowboys will have 9 on the season.
Okay.
Scratch it.
Scratch them out? All right. I'm glad you said that.
Out.
We got you on record.
All right.
I've been on record all year. Where you been? Where you been? I've been telling you the accident way to happen. I've been telling you what can go wrong will go wrong. I've been telling you I've been right.
You've also
Selection
told me
memory.
if they had been healthy that they would be running away.
Yes.
But I told you
Yeah.
something would happen, and this happened.
The Seahawks are back to playoff form, crushing the Vikings 38-7. 3 straight wins now for Seattle and 5 wins in their last 6 games. Russell Wilson, listen to this, had 10 TDs in his first 9 games and 11 in his last 3. Thomas Rawls really stepping in nicely for Marshawn Lynch, his 3rd game this season with 100 rush yards and a rush TD. Stephen A. says your Super Bowl pick, are the Seahawks now the team to beat in the NFC?
Well, I'm not going to go as far as saying they're the team to beat because there's a team by the name of the Carolina Panthers who look absolutely sensational from the perspective that whatever needs to be done gets done, whether it's on the defensive side of the ball with key stops or whether it's Cam Newton electrifying us all and showing off that he's the legit MVP candidate that he is. And, of course, there is the Arizona Cardinals with Bruce Arians coaching his butt off and Carson Palmer and that offense looking formidable. So we can't ignore that. But I will say this, 2 things. Nobody wants to face Seattle if they don't have to. That's number 1. And number 2, and more importantly, Seattle can beat anybody if their defense shows up the way that they showed up yesterday afternoon. Now, we have to recognize something here. Yeah, Adrian Peterson rushed for just 18 yards on 8 carries. And by the way, it ain't cool, bro, to call out your coach like he did. That's not the way to go, to be quite honest with you. But I will say this. What do you expect going against that speed with those athletes on that defensive side of the ball? And you've got a quarterback in Teddy Bridgewater who Skip always says, I like him, but I don't love him. You know, then when you take into account Anthony Barr goes down with a groin injury, Harrison Smith has a hamstring injury, nose tackle Linval Joseph had a foot injury. You look at all of those injuries that Minnesota was suffering from. They really didn't have a chance yesterday. Seattle comes in there. There's a level of urgency attached to everything that they do. Their defense took pride in the fact that they've been giving up too many points, and they got called out by yours truly along with several others who have been watching them, and they responded like we expect the Legion of Boom to respond. And that's what they did. And so because of it, they're now in prime position to make noise moving forward. It wouldn't surprise me at all if they won their remaining 4 games on the year. We'll see what happened. And if they don't, and they've got that wild card spot, you know, at the very least, available to them, and they can really make some noise. Russell Wilson is looking sensational. 3 touchdown passes, ran for a touchdown yesterday. His elusivity is just kicking in because they get pressure on this kid, and they can't catch him. And so when you do that and you have that ability to extend plays, and you've got this kid Rawls who has you barely thinking about beast mode, Marshawn Lynch at all, even though he fumbled yesterday, ran for 101 yards, is formidable on the ground, can run the football, and there's seemingly no drop off from beast mode to him. And you look at these guys, they seem to be better without Jimmy Graham. I mean, this kid Wilson at the tight end spot is somebody that they were familiar with playing with at their tight end spot for years. He knows the system. He knows what it takes. This camaraderie and chemistry with Russell Wilson, all those things considered, I think Seattle can make a lot of noise. And they are not tippy-toeing. They are stomping in your direction. And I think the best thing you can say about them is that you cannot ignore them. Here they come. You had better be ready, or the reigning, defending, two-time NFC champions will knock you off.
So are you saying they're getting closer to Carolina and to Arizona,
Yes.
or do you think they passed Arizona?
No, I said they're getting closer. They're creeping up on them significantly, rapidly. I would not say that they're over them as of yet, because remember, they're up and down, whereas Carolina and Arizona have displayed the level of consistency throughout this year.
I need to see a whole lot more from Seattle.
Defensively.
I take it both ways. Although Russell Wilson, it's almost like he's grown up. He's taken it up a notch to your stat. That's the stat of the day, is that he has 11 in his last 3 games, 11 touchdowns.
After having 10.
And a lot to Doug Baldwin. He stepped it up.
And all of a sudden, Russell Wilson is making plays from the pocket I did not think he was capable of making at about 5 feet, whatever he is. He's just short of 5'11", and he's shorter than Johnny Manziel by almost an inch. And he is standing in the pocket making big-time down-the-field throws. He leads the league in 15-plus yard completions. So that's pretty great. So I give that to them. They've almost become, dare I say, more of an offensive than a defensive team. And look, I'm not going to put much stock in what happened at Minnesota, because I said the last time Green Bay went up there, 2 weeks ago? They're just not ready for prime time. They're not ready for this kind of game, and they were beat up. I give you that. But this was like an hors d'oeuvre for Seattle, because if you take Adrian Peterson out of the game, which they are highly capable of doing, and you force the game back into young Teddy's hands, look out, because he threw for 118 yards, no touchdowns, and an interception. Then they got no shot. So it was the perfect matchup for Seattle yesterday, even at Minnesota, given all the injuries. But I remind you, just seemed like a couple of weeks ago, Carson Palmer went up to Seattle and beat him 39-32. And I remind you, in their sort of fits and starts year so far, where they've been way up and way down, they've blown, what is it? I've lost track. 5 fourth-quarter leads the Legion of Boom has. So I'm just not sold yet. And I'm going to remind you also of this. If that ref hadn't given that win to Detroit on Monday Night Football, remember
Give it to them over Detroit.
Yeah, remember that?
Yep.
Okay. Detroit should have won that football game. And Seattle did win it 13-10 by hook or crook. And if you take that away, boy, they're in trouble. But they're on a roll. They did fall to 2-4, and everybody was starting to write them off. Now they've won 5 out of 6. So they are coming. But do I think they're – right now, I still think Arizona is a little better to me than Carolina is.
Well,
just because of the firepower. And did you check out this kid, David Johnson, their third-round draft choice?
Nice.
Like, all of a sudden, they lose a couple running backs, and you think, uh-oh. And now Bruce Arians is comparing him to Edgerrin James, because he went for 99, and they were really impressed. I know Nick Foles had just gone in the tank in St. Louis, but that's been a nemesis for Arizona. Remember, the St. Louis had already beaten them.
Again, you dismiss your own comment by bringing up Nick Foles, because Nick Foles has been a disaster for St. Louis.
But remember,
really
they had won at Arizona, so,
yes,
like, okay.
He's been a disaster for them. And then if you're Seattle, you got Baltimore.
Winnable,
I mean, they're prideful, but you're at Baltimore. You got St. Louis. You got Cleveland before St. Louis. And so when you look at those 3 games, we're really not going to know until Sunday, January 3rd, when they're at Arizona. Now, what I would say to you is this. I trust the character of the Seattle Seahawks, meaning their pride on the defensive side of the ball. I saw a little Richard Sherman in Richard Sherman yesterday in terms of the attitude. That's what I'm looking for.
I saw Richard against Antonio Brown in
Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh.
That's right. And I'm just saying I need to see more of that from him. And it's sort of like they're getting it together. They're getting that mystique, that aura back. And if they have that, particularly when they go to Arizona, everything changes. Everything changes.
Geico presents Strange Savings Stories. Astronomers detected an interstellar transmission. It stated, Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more. The implications were staggering. Was the cosmos telling us we could all save hundreds on car insurance with Geico? Or did their radar merely pick up a signal from the nearby Rufus and Clyde's morning show? We may never know.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
The playoffs are set. Number 1, Clemson. Number 2, Alabama. Number 3, Michigan State. And number 4, Oklahoma. The first semifinal matchup is Clemson versus Oklahoma in the Capital One Orange Bowl at 4 p.m. Eastern on New Year's Eve. And for your nightcap semifinal matchup, it's Alabama and Michigan State in the Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic at 8 p.m. Eastern. So no major controversy with the teams, but some questions with the seeding. Skip, what are your thoughts on these matchups?
My thoughts are, Molly and Stephen A., that they worked out perfectly and beautifully, but I am speaking as a lifelong University of Oklahoma fan here, and I did not want to see the two best teams in the country, Alabama and Oklahoma, matched up in a semi-final. And truth be told, Michigan State's resume is clearly, to me, stronger than my Oklahoma Sooners resume, because remember, Michigan State's lone loss was at Nebraska on a very controversial receiver goes out of bounds and comes back in to make the winning catch play, 39-38. While my Oklahoma Sooners, in the stinker of the year in college football, Bob Stoops did not have them ready to play their arch rival Texas after Texas had just lost at TCU 50-7. And the Longhorns in Dallas steamrolled my Oklahoma Sooners with 313 yards rushing because they just didn't show up mentally. Are they that bad? They are not that bad. They got back in this game 24-17, though. Truth be told, final score wasn't that close. Michigan State deserved to leapfrog them. But now, this is why this is a beautiful thing for me. A year ago in the bowl games, in the Russell Athletic Citrus Bowl, my Oklahoma Sooners also did not show up. Another big game boob game. I'm sorry, I love Bob Stoops personally, but I don't like him as a motivational, get you ready for the big game kind of coach. And in that bowl game, I guess my Sooners just didn't feel like playing in a quote-unquote minor bowl because it was 40-0 after 3 quarters. And for the first time in my OU-loving life, I turned to Ernestine and I said, I'm sorry, I can't watch any more of this. Can we watch a Jeopardy rerun or something? I don't know what we did, but we just turned it off. 40-0 after 3 quarters. And again, that wasn't even Deshaun Watson, who was hurt for the game.
That's right.
Remember Cliff Stout, the Steelers?
Jeopardy.
Okay, you remember him as the Steelers quarterback. His kid
I wasn't impressed with him then.
Yeah, what's that? You weren't impressed with him?
I wasn't impressed with
Well, I was
Cliff Stout
impressed with
back
his
in the day.
kid this night
His
against
kid.
OU because
His
he
kid
lit it
showed
up,
up.
okay?
That's
And my quarterback that night was Trevor Knight, who looked as nightmarishly bad against Clemson as he had looked all-time great against Nick Saban's Alabama Crimson Tide in the previous Orange Bowl when Alabama mailed it in after the kick six game.
Basically facilitated the arrival of Mayfield.
That is correct. Okay,
Yeah.
so that's what happened. So this is Baker Mayfield. He is, to quote the great Mel Kiper, the most valuable player in college football. He drives this train. He makes the plays. He's the leader emotionally and strategically on the field. He is a Manziel-like playmaker, which is why I love this team to win it all. They are leading in FPI. They're leading in the prediction machine in USA Today, has them winning both games. Vegas has Alabama as a slight favorite, but I want to see Oklahoma and Alabama square off in the finale, and then we'll see what happens.
Now, so are you picking Oklahoma to win it all?
I am, in spite of my coach, Bob Stoops, whom I never trust in these games, but I do trust Baker Mayfield. I think he has trumped Bob Stoops. He's taken over the team in lieu of Bob Stoops' ability to motivate.
Now,
We'll be there for that.
You know where I'm going.
I know you're going to roll, baby.
Roll
Yep.
Tide.
Yeah,
You
here
know
we go.
me. I'm going with Alabama, and I couldn't be happier because I've heard so much about Oklahoma. Now, here's the thing for me. I respect Clemson. Dabo Swinney, I mean, this dude is Mr. Television. I love seeing him.
He is. He lights it up.
And he is great. He's
Yep.
phenomenal for college football. The level of attention that he brings to college football in such a positive fashion, I just think it's a beautiful thing to see him
It
and
is.
Clemson in a position to possibly, win a national championship for the first time since 1981. Nothing but love for them. But I don't think they're the best team in the nation, even though they've been ranked number 1. And I'm looking at their schedule, and I know they beat Notre Dame by 2, and I know they beat Florida State. And then I'm looking at wins over Syracuse and Wake Forest and South Carolina. And they only beat South Carolina by 5, and they gave up 32 to South Carolina, and they gave up 37 to North Carolina. So I'm saying if you gave up 32 and 37 to South Carolina and North Carolina in back-to-back contests, what the hell are you going to do against Oklahoma with Baker Mayfield and those boys? I'm just not so sure. So I look at it and I say, all right, they've been telling me, because I only saw Oklahoma twice this year. I saw them romp Oklahoma State, and I didn't even watch all of that game. And I watched them lose to Charlie Strong in Texas, okay? So I'm just looking at the Red River rivalry. I saw all of that. My thing is this. If Oklahoma is supposed to be the best, then that's who I want Roll Tide to go up against.
Okay.
Now, I got to be careful, because under no circumstances do I think Michigan State should be dismissed. Michigan State is to be respected. Their front 7 is big time. I'm just not sold on Connor Cook. I'm just not sold on him.
He wasn't healthy.
I know he wasn't healthy. I know, listen, I know he can play.
He can.
I know they're saying he's a first-round pick. I know they've got a lot of faith in him. I know his shoulder. I get all of that.
I'm with you, though.
I'm just not sold. There's something about him, Skip, that's just missing. I'm not really sold on him. I know they can run the football. I know they play smash mouth old school, right? To me, that's playing right into Alabama's hands.
I agree with
that's
you.
the kind of
This
game.
is a good
that's the
matchup
kind
for
of game
Alabama.
they want.
And
this
remember,
is what it is.
Connor Cook can't run,
Right.
although he did make a big run.
He
to save
did make
the
a
game.
big run, but he's not a runner. I believe it'll be a close game, but that Alabama will find a way to get to the national title game. I don't think they're losing to a Big Ten squad 2 years in a row in the national semifinal. I think they're going to get to the finals, okay?
Yeah.
So, but I look at Oklahoma. Clemson can make it interesting. I think Clemson's a very good team. I just don't think they're worthy of being number 1. And I believe, no disrespect to Dabo Sweeney, please, because I'm a fan.
Yeah.
But I just think that they can make it very interesting, but Oklahoma with Baker Mayfield will find a way. But then I think about Oklahoma, Skip, and your last 3 wins to close out the year. You beat Baylor, you beat TCU, all right, but they didn't have Boykin.
They did.
And you still only won 30-29. Now, you made up for it by shellacking Oklahoma State.
Yep.
But because of how things just played out for you.
By the way, Mason Rudolph, Oklahoma State's quarterback, wasn't right.
That's
for that
right.
game.
That's right. Exactly.
And Baylor was down to
exactly.
their
Their third string quarterback.
Well,
so they had a second string quarterback against Baylor. You had a second stringer against TCU, and the dude against Oklahoma.
He's a 1A quarterback.
That's right. There you go. So because of that, I got questions about Oklahoma.
Okay.
I still think they find a way to beat Clemson because I don't trust Clemson's defense. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. I can see both teams scoring in a 40 in that national semifinal between Clemson and Oklahoma, but it comes down to Oklahoma against Roll Tide, Alabama, and Baker Mayfield against that defense with Nick Saban having a few extra days to prepare. Okay, what is it, from like 10 days from January 11th, from January 1st to January 11th?
Yep.
I'm like this, I'm rolling with Saban.
Are you?
And Alabama. Roll Tide to win the national championship over Oklahoma. That's what I'm thinking.
We at least expected Nick Saban's defense gets torched. They got torched some this year.
Listen,
Ole Miss torched that defense at Tuscaloosa.
They did turn the ball over 5 times. Let's not forget that. Let's remember that Georgia was supposed to make some noise when Nick Chubb was healthy. They shut him down. Texas A&M was supposed to make some noise. They went to Texas A&M, shut them down. LSU, Leonard Fournette was supposed to do his thing. What happened? Okay, so you can talk all of that stuff all you want to, but last time I checked, Alabama, Nick Saban, Roll Tide, Kirby Smart, your defensive coordinator. He ain't leave for Georgia yet. You had all of this going on, and when the challenge was placed before them, Alabama showed up. I believe that will be the case again. I'm rolling with the Tide to win the national championship over Oklahoma.
You know, you're going.
I'm shocked about you too. And you going out on a limb with Oklahoma, please?
They're barely the favorite.
Here's how far I'm going out on my limb.
Okay.
as a Sooner fan, I am more worried about Clemson than I am about Alabama.
That is
Wow.
very disrespectful.
That's what I'm saying.
You just exercised disrespect
Shots
right
fired.
there. That was disrespectful.
I did.
You worried more about
It was
Clemson
honesty,
and Alabama.
pure honesty.
I don't understand the honesty.
You know why?
Please.
You know why?
I mean,
That's why I wear my
Alabama
orange
is
dress for
less
you.
to be worried about than Clemson.
Deshaun Watson is a great college football.
Really?
College
I didn't
football
know that.
player.
We ain't.
He is
Excuse
great.
me. Leonard Fournette's great. What happened to him?
He doesn't play
What happened to him? Well, it doesn't matter. The point that I'm trying to make to you is when you going up against Ty, Eddie Jackson, and the crew on
You know
that
what?
defensive side, and Ragland and
Now-
those boys on that defense, you're
now-
being very disrespectful.
now I
very
want-
disrespectful.
In fact, I need Deshaun Watson to win the Heisman over Derrick Henry. That's what I
Wow.
need.
Really?
Wow.
Really?
I
Getting
want it. I
personal
need
now.
Security needs to get you drug tested.
Why?
Derrick Henry doesn't get the
After the
Heisman
show-
because
the
of
show
Watson.
the
Oh,
other
stop
night?
it. Against North Carolina, I respect them. They had a good season, but they showed that they didn't necessarily belong in that national playoff, okay? North Carolina is very good, doing an outstanding job. Proud of those brothers, but they didn't belong in the top 4, and they still got dropped 37 on Clemson. Really?
I need Deshaun Watson to bring his Heisman Trophy to the Orange Bowl.
Let me ask you this question.
That's what I need.
Let me ask you this
Stop it.
question.
That's what I need.
Let me ask you this question.
Yeah.
You think Deshaun Watson and those boys are going to put up those points against Alabama's defense?
Well, I already picked Oklahoma to beat Clemson.
Okay, so you think Oklahoma's going to be good. So you think they're going to put up those numbers on Oklahoma?
No, I just need Deshaun to win the Heisman, just so he can bring it down to the Orange Bowl.
He can carry it.
Yeah.
You do that,
And I'm
all
gonna-
you're going to do is
I also have
exacerbate
to
the
remind
situation
you-
and tick them off.
What?
It's very disrespectful what
Historically,
you're
at the
saying.
Orange Bowl, my Sooners are 12-6, and they've won
Who
some national
cares? I mean, what the hell are they doing? Giving out
National
oranges?
championships.
What are they, farm workers? No, they're
No,
football
you know what?
players. Who cares what they did at the Orange Bowl
Sooners-
years ago?
my
What did they do in
Sooners
the bowl
love
game
South
last year?
Beach. They love South
Really?
Beach.
Really?
Yeah, they light it
love
up on
South Beach.
South
Well, you
Beach.
know what?
You know
Alabama, with Saban being as disciplined as they are,
Yeah, right.
recognize that they don't need to be in South Beach
Yeah,
in
they
the
get to
days
be
leading up
I
to it.
suddenly
Please.
have
And by
a
the way,
really
they're gonna be on
vested
there.
interest in this
You
game
really
now,
have
because
to
I
be.
need
You're very
Bama and
disrespectful.
Oklahoma
You're
when we're
very
at the national
disrespectful.
championship
That's
game.
disrespect right there. That's disrespect.
No.
Clemson is
Pure
more
honesty.
of a threat than
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm
Alabama.
more worried. Yeah.
Oh, Lord, please let it be those two
Ooh,
teams,
you
because
know,
it'll be fun for us. Those will be
the
some
number
fun
one
shows.
Listen, Clemson,
They're
I
number
like
one.
Clemson a lot. I respect them. I'm fans of their program. I just don't think that they ready for this. Alabama? Ooh, that's very
Bama,
disrespectful.
Oklahoma.
That's very
Make it
disrespectful.
happen so I
comes
can get
Baker
more of this.
Mayfield.
Okay. Every week, it's a new story in the NFC East. Skip, that's how you say UConn,
Sing
too.
UConn? Is that how you say the
UConn,
name?
Huskies. We just talked about your Sooners.
Objectivity
Let's
is
stay
so touching.
focused.
Oh,
Let's
we
stay
are focused.
focused.
Somebody
Stop
is
distracting me.
focused on Connecticut.
Yeah,
Oh, we're
Standings
focused.
look.
Big game
As
ball,
we
right?
speak.
Fun.
It's my pro team. What do you want from me? The Redskins are in first place at 5-6, followed by the Eagles, who are second at 5-7 due to tiebreakers. Giants are third at 5-7, and the Cowboys are in last place at 3-8. So we asked you earlier, who's your favorite in the NFC East? And Twitter has spoken.
What did they say?
Whatever. The Redskins, 31%. Eagles and Giants tied for 24%. And the Cowboys,
No, that's
close,
impressive.
Skip.
The Cowboys got 21%. That's
Wow.
stunning to me.
Wow.
There's hope. Oh,
Wow.
gosh, we're spending
At
too
least
much
they
time
got the
together.
right to the first team right.
Yeah.
The Redskins.
Really?
The Redskins are the team. Again, for the second week in a row, I'm here preaching that Kirk Cousins in that defensive backfield ranked about 12th or so. And I think that's really the key there when you talk about the NFC East. They're just so unreliable, all the teams. I think when you look at it, quarterback receiver combination, the Giants have it there, but they don't really have a running game. I think when you look at defensively, I saw a little bit of pressure the other day, which they love to do with their front four, got after him, but in the end, they're too
Pressure from the
inconsistent.
Giants, yeah.
Giants front four did a great job. JPP, man, putting pressure on, but they're too inconsistent. They don't have anything to really rely on outside of that great combination of Eli and Odell Beckham. I mean, great highlights, one-handed catches and all that, but you know what? At the end of the game, it's all about winning, and they don't do that enough for me, particularly last week when you lose to the Washington Redskins. So I'm going with the Washington Redskins still as the
Hail to the
NFC
Redskins.
East champs, because there's no way the Philadelphia Eagles are going to climb back up on that horse with all those obstacles and issues with the defense, the secondary. You won't know who's running the football. As far as quarterback play is concerned, it's up and down.
You realize, I think everybody at this table has picked all 4 teams at one point this year.
Yeah, it changes every week. It's ridiculous.
Listen, the fact of the matter is that it's one of those rare occasions, guys, where we can't blame ourselves. The NFC East is so haphazard. It lacks continuity.
Yeah.
Guys look like professionals 1 minute, Pop Warner players the next. They can't make up their own damn mind, so why should we be obligated to? Having said all of that, speaking with my heart instead of my head, I can't go against the Giants in favor of Kirk Cousins just yet, because it is Kirk Cousins that we're talking about, who can be an accident waiting to happen in his own right, particularly when the bright lights come on. But I will leave open the possibility that he could change my mind if he shows up in a primetime venue like tonight and handles his business in the nation's capital. If that happens, which should happen, then I'm going to give him props. I want to say this, and I'll give a lot of credit to Joe Theismann, who won a Super Bowl with the Redskins, somebody that you're very familiar with as well as yourself. He showed up in a lot of big moments. He knows what he's talking about, and he still gives analysis on the Redskins. He's been raving about Kirk Cousins for weeks. You know, he's been on my show on two occasions. That's right, Skip. Sirius XM, Mad Dog Sports.
82.
Channel 82. 1 to 3 p.m.
It's international,
Eastern time, every weekday. He showed up on that at least 2 or 3 times. And each time, even before the Redskins went on their run, he said, look, Stephen A., don't rule out Kirk Cousins. He prepares. He puts forth the hard work. He's disciplined. He has a good rapport with the coach. He's got a hold on what they're doing and what they want to do, and that goes a long way. And then I'm looking at Kirk Cousins. The brother's completing 68% of his passes.
Yes.
68% of his passes. I mean, he's got 16 touchdowns and 10 interceptions, but he's got a...
So scan the list there for me. Has he won on the road yet?
No, hold on. Let me,
just for the record. I just want to make sure.
No.
He has checking your facts.
Every single road game he has lost. But tonight's game is at home.
That's correct.
And so we have to take that into consideration.
He's won 5 in a row.
The road games that he has left are Chicago, Philly, and Dallas after this. I don't see, it's not implausible for Washington to win 3 of those games, 2 of those 3 on the road. All I'm saying to you is that when I look at it from that perspective, as much as I don't want to believe in him, I'm a fair-minded dude. No matter how I feel, no matter what I say, if you show me, then I'm going to acknowledge you've shown me.
Right.
And thus far, Kirk Cousins is showing me that Jay Gruden made the right decision by placing his faith in Kirk Cousins. Tonight, however, you bring up road. I bring up bright lights prime time.
It is.
Whenever the bright lights come on, Kirk Cousins has disappointed me. Will that be the case tonight? That's going to tell me a lot.
Even if he merely shows up against a 3-8 team?
Well, what I'm saying to you is it doesn't matter because I don't think he's allergic to the road. I don't even think it's about the competition. I think to him it's about the bright lights and expectations. Like when we start talking about the Redskins, like, man, I was impressed with Kirk Cousins. All right, here we go. And then all of a sudden they got a national televised game. He stinks up the joint. I mean, I got friends and loved ones in D.C. that are done with the Redskins because they refuse to believe in him. Because when the lights shine brightest, he withers. And that's what I'm worried about tonight. I'm not worried about the Redskins being a worse team than the Cowboys. I'm worried about Kirk Cousins being under the bright lights of Monday Night Football with Jay Gruden on the sideline and John Gruden in the booth with my man Mike Tirico.
Good point.
And all of a sudden dissecting and highlighting his strengths and his deficiencies and him wilting beneath that pressure. That is my concern, but I'm still going to pick the Redskins to win this game tonight.
Okay. Are you?
Yes.
Big?
No, I don't think it'll be big. I think it'll be something along the lines of 27-21, something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Before I launch into my soliloquy, I have a theory about the Philadelphia Eagles' victory yesterday. There's this supposed rookie for Philly who plays cornerback named Eric Rowe from Utah. I am now convinced it's actually Eric Allen masquerading as Eric Rowe, because how could they have suddenly turned it around? Like, did you go play at Foxborough?
You know what? I tried, but Eric Rowe's a good ball player now.
He can
long
play.
and lean,
I like him, Skip.
very
I like
physical.
Eric Rowe.
Started reminding me of Eric Allen.
Hey, you know what?
He's
Did a very
physical,
good job.
scared.
Yeah.
He goes after.
Big,
He
strong
he
kid.
seems to be the antithesis of what Chip
you wouldn't
Kelly.
have said that after
Yeah.
you wouldn't have said that after Thanksgiving Day debacle at Detroit.
Right, but that was
Right.
a collective meltdown.
Okay. All right. I am also saying Washington is in the driver's seat in the East because they have my pathetic, Roma-less Dallas Cowboys twice. They get them at home and at the place where my Cowboys never seem to rise and shine, Jerry World, where, by the way, if I remember correctly and painfully, the Washington Redskins beat my Cowboys when they were riding high last year at Jerry World on a Monday night. Do you remember that game? It was a Colt McCoy game, but who remembers that?
Yep.
Okay, Romo got banged up, ribs, whatever. Okay, so they've got 2 against Dallas that they should win. And at Chicago, I'd give them a pretty good shot to win that game.
Yep.
Buffalo at home, I give them a shot to win that game. At Philadelphia, I'm not so sure. But I will say this, curious your take. I thought yesterday for the Eagles was a fluky, freaky aberration. Because if you hand a visiting team 3 tumultuous turnover touchdowns, not 1 or 2, 3. Where you give them the ball and let them go all the way home with it 3 times, you're probably going to lose that game at home. If you give up 35 unanswered, you're probably going to lose that game at home. I agree with you, Sam Bradford made a couple of good throws, but only a couple because the yards are low. They had 248 total yards because all the scoring mostly came off these fluke freak plays. So I'm not going to overreact to what the Eagles did. I'm not going to say Chip's team is back in business. Now, again, do they still have everybody's got a shot here, right?
Right.
Okay, but
I would agree with you with the Philadelphia Eagles point. I think another thing also is the familiarity between the Eagles and the Patriots practicing against one another. It wasn't like, hey, here comes the big bad Patriots. Then you don't have Gronk, you don't have Edelman, you have a banged up Danny Amendola. The running game is not as strong as it should be with this Patriots football team. So I think there was a little fool's gold when we're talking about
for most of a week.
Without a doubt.
In preseason, obviously. And I think the mystique was lifted a little bit when you get to see them up close and personal and you say, oh, we're okay. And I still say this about Chip's Eagles. That's a talented football team. I don't care. I don't love the quarterback, but other than the quarterback, there's talent everywhere.
But let's be clear. We've never questioned their talent. What we questioned was the intestinal fortitude, their physicality, and the schemes that Chip Kelly wants to employ because he wants to look like boy genius, deviating away from what their strengths are. Like, for example, DeMarco Murray. Like, how do you give this rookie Barner the ball in those key pivotal situations when you got a guy like...
He's a first year.
Well, how do you give him the ball when you have DeMarco Murray?
He's an Oregon guy. That's how you get him.
But I'm saying you do that after going out and paying DeMarco Murray this money. So what I'm saying to you is that, Kerry Williams is gone, but you bring in an overpaid Byron Maxwell. So when you look at it from that perspective, we all know that the Eagles have talent. It's what Chip Kelly, it's how he uses it that has fallen under the spotlight.
Yeah, without a doubt.
We're not questioning.
They are talented.
I want the Eagles to know. Nobody's questioning their talent. We know they have talent. It's what Chip Kelly does with it that everyone's questioning.
Okay, I got a question for both of you. Ex-Eagle and a Philly still area resident.
Absolutely.
How much credibility did Chip win back yesterday with that win?
I don't
Philly?
think. Go ahead.
For me, very little.
Okay.
Very little because of the team they played and where the Patriots were at that moment. Now, this is different if we're talking about the Patriots 4 or 5 weeks ago when everyone's healthy.
Totally agree with him. Totally agree with him. It stopped the bleeding because there's 2 consecutive weeks where you gave up 45 points, and it was Tom Brady on the other side of that defense that you were, on the offense that you were facing. But in the end, it's very, very little credibility because Philadelphia knows football. They know Gronk wasn't there. They know Edelman wasn't there. They know Deion Lewis wasn't there. And they also know that Brandon LaFell can't catch. So they saw all of these things, and they're like this: block punt, punt return, Tom Brady interception. That's not normal. They know that. They know that. So I guarantee you this: nobody in Philadelphia will want the Eagles to play him again.
Do you think he got some credibility?
An ounce. like an ounce, because you got to give it to them. I mean, they did pull that off, and they actually looked like a football team yesterday for the first time in a long time. That coming off 2 straight games in which they had allowed 45 points in 5 touchdown passes. What I was impressed with, we said after the Thanksgiving game, they had quit on Chip Kelly.
They did.
Yesterday, they didn't look like they had quit on Chip Kelly. Is that fair?
Maybe just because they wanted to beat the Patriots.
That's fair.
My last quick point in this discussion. If Tony Romo were still healthy,
oh, come on, we gotta go to break.
If he were still healthy,
yeah.
You know it. You know
okay,
it,
yeah, we know it.
By the way,
let me be clear though. So everybody's picking Washington tonight. We're all picking Washington tonight. Even you, Skip.
Washington should win.
Okay, and the division.
Hold on, Molly.
Yeah, go ahead.
Buffalo and Arizona.
Who?
Next 2 games for the Eagles.
Yeah, at home, but.
Well, you know, the Eagles. Remember, Eagles love to lose at home.
Okay.
Okay.
And my final point: the only NFC East team that scored more points than it's allowed this season, the Giants, plus 11. Just had to get that in there. It was Cam's second game with 5 pass TDs in the last 3 weeks. With their 41-38 win over the Saints, the Panthers are now 12-0, and Carolina native Steph Curry tweeted this. So, did the Panthers win? Yep. Cam show why he's MVP? Yup. 12-0? Yup. Hashtag keep pounding? Yup. He's having quite a season. His team, right? And his football team. Eric, is Cam the MVP now?
Right now, if we were voting, there's no doubt about it.
No doubt about it.
No doubt about it. If we were voting right now today, what did we learn? We learned that when an undefeated team is not at their level best, you don't have the great running game you can rely on, that outstanding defense to shut you down, and you need to continue to battle one of the all-time greats in Drew Brees, you're going to need a quarterback to throw some touchdowns. You're going to need a quarterback to win from inside the pocket. And Cam Newton, great stature, he did it all. And that's what we learned. He elevated his game. It's not just, hey, you know what, read option guy, I'll throw the ball to the tight end. You know what? He's making players around him better. And I think that's the issue, and that's the last question for me. It was about, can he outplay the game plan? Can he make players around him better? I mean, Greg Olsen's an outstanding tight end, but receiving core, you got Ted Ginn, you got some other guys. He made those guys better. When there were drops and miss passing opportunities, it wasn't because of him, it was because of the receivers. So Cam Newton playing at a very, very high level, got 25 touchdowns, up to 10 picks, almost 500 yards rushing. So he separates himself from the quarterback category as far as that is concerned, almost averaging 5 yards a carry. So him and Stewart doing it, running the football, and then of course he can continue to make those great drives at the end of games when you need it. Love the accuracy, love the ability to be able to win from inside the pocket. Right now, it's Cam Newton's league.
Go ahead, Skip.
No, you go. I want to hear this. You agree with everything he just said?
I really do.
Seriously?
Oh, seriously.
Yeah.
The numbers
you have no doubt? Go, I'm sorry.
The numbers that Brady is putting forth is obviously better. And what Brady has been forced to work with as the season has progressed is undoubtedly so. We understand that. Deion Lewis went out earlier in the year. On the defensive side of the ball, you got the Jamie Collins, the Dante Hightowers of the world that have been injured. Ultimately, Julian Edelman went down on the offensive side of the ball. Ultimately, Rob Gronkowski went out down on the side on the other side of the ball. We get all of that, but that's why they have 2 losses now. Mm-hmm. Cam doesn't have any, and when Kelvin Benjamin went down, Cam Newton walked into this season, and let's face reality, we were all wondering how the Carolina Panthers were going to win 7 or 8 games. That's what we were wondering. I thought Atlanta was going to win the division because I'm saying all you have is Greg Olsen, because I knew that as electrifying as Ted Ginn Jr. was, and he can play, the brother can't catch. You can't rely on him.
He struggles a little bit.
Listen, he struggles a lot.
In that
now,
category.
he will score a touchdown or 2 for you, but you can almost book that he's going to drop. If it were not for Carolina's defense, okay, there's a few games they would have lost because Ted Ginn dropped passes from Cam Newton. I mean, Cam Newton, I'm not talking about, I mean, this, Skip, people drop passes. Like, I remember you called out, whether it's an Amendola or somebody that, they're lunging for a ball and they should have caught it because it touched their hands, but they flying through the air. Ted Ginn is in stride, and the ball is hitting him right here. It's going through it. It's bobbled. It's dropped. You just see players just looking. It's like you see him sitting up there, and Lord, he's going to have to go see a dentist because he's grinding his teeth because he's trying to hold back from cursing his own self out because of them damn drop passes that he's got. I mean, it's ridiculous that he drops as many passes as he drops. And I know the kid is the speed, his ability to get open. It's impressive, but my God, you've got to catch the ball, for crying out loud. So I look at that, and I'm like, and D'Angelo Williams, and what he's doing in Pittsburgh. He's not in Carolina anymore. Not saying Jonathan Stewart's still there.
I think Jonathan Stewart's pretty good.
No, I'm saying, but it was a 1-2 punch. And now you got just Jonathan Stewart. And so I'm looking at Cam. All you really had coming into the year was Jonathan Stewart and Greg Olsen. And somehow, some way, he's finding ways to win. Pressurized moments, Skips, when it counts in the fourth quarter is when he appears to be at his best, and they are undefeated. I look at it from that perspective, the load that he has to carry, which I think is equitable to what Tom Brady has to carry offensively, and they're unblemished. And I can't. A couple of weeks ago, I was like, Brady by a smidgen.
Yeah, me too.
I can't do it now. I have to give it to Cam Newton. If it's still 4 games to go.
Right.
It's still 4. But if you had to ask me today, if I had to sit there and I had to vote today, Cam Newton would get my vote for NFL MVP.
Okay, I will acknowledge to both of you, Cam Newton is in the midst of a sensational breakout season. But I also got to tell you that outside of Patriots Nation, there's a whole lot of Patriot hate out there. And I think the world outside Patriot Nation was waiting for the smallest excuse to elevate Cam above Brady. And they got it with 2 losses, one at Denver, in which, by the way, New England led 21-7 early in the fourth quarter and was about to get the ball back when an undrafted rookie free agent, I won't even say his name because he's now cut. He's no longer with the team. Muffs a punt. Remember that? That was the turning point in that game. And obviously then Gronk with 2:35 left in that game got hurt. And I will remind you that yesterday at home, Tom Brady threw 2 touchdown passes to put them up 14-0 before all hell broke loose with all the gift turnovers. And we talked about that in the last topic.
Okay.
To me, Tom Brady is still miles ahead of Cam Newton because it is extraordinary what he has done from start to finish this year. It is not extraordinary what Cam has done from start to finish. If you want me to pick apart his games, his earlier games where they were barely beating those NFC South foes, his schedule has not been that tough, I got to tell you, compared to the Patriots schedule. Now, let's look back at what's going on here with Tom Brady. He continues to operate behind the least experienced, most decimated offensive line in football. It's not even close. I don't know how he does it. They lost another starter, Josh Klein, yesterday. I don't know what's going to happen to him. Obviously, we all know about weapon after weapon after weapon has been lost. So now let's look at what he's pulled off. Remember, at Bills early, that game 2, against Rex's defense up there in Orchard Park, he threw for 466, 3 touchdowns and no interceptions. Against the Jets defense, albeit in Foxborough, 355, 2 touchdowns and no interceptions. Those are 2 very good defenses. And then against your Giants, I know the defense isn't very good, but the game was hot and heavy all the way to the last drop. He threw for 334, and remember the 4th and long he converted to keep the classic final drive alive? And then at Denver, let's talk about at Denver. Remember the last gasp drive that he pulled off with less than a minute left when they let the clock run from 40 seconds down to 10 seconds? Throwing to Brandon LaFell and Scott Chandler, he pulls off a tying field goal drive that was as classic a Brady clutch drive as I have ever seen. I don't know how he did it. And then yesterday, he still threw for 312 against the Eagles. And in the end, as we all agreed in our opening topic, he threw 4 passes in the last series that I thought should have been caught, and maybe the first one for a touchdown to Brandon LaFell. So I look at what he has 31 touchdowns, which leads the National Football League, only 6 interceptions. On percentage of interceptions to touchdowns, that ranks second only to Alex Smith, who has only 14 touchdown passes to 3 interceptions. So Alex doesn't do that. But 31-6, and he's thrown for the most yards in the National Football League. What more do you want from a guy? That's MVP all over.
Here's my problem. with your argument. The things that you're saying he did, one could argue Cam has done.
Lately, he's been great in the fourth quarter. Is that what you mean?
Exactly. Yeah. So what I'm saying to you is that you have your heroic moments by Tom Brady. We have ours about Cam Newton.
Yeah.
You have Bill Belichick and a system that has been in place where continuity matters and the weapons, because Rob Gronkowski just got hurt. Julian Edelman's been out a few weeks now. Amendola, the same thing. But by and large, for this 10-2 start, for the vast majority of that, they have been in attendance, in uniform, playing. You also have to take into account the fact that even though Carolina has won their division for the third consecutive year, last year they went to the playoffs at 7-8-1. Yeah. And there were questions about the legitimacy of Ron Rivera, particularly on the offensive side of the ball, because we all know that the man knows defense, he knows the locker room, apparently he has motivational skills and whatever, but he has never been mistaken for Bill Belichick is.
Right.
So because of that, all of those things taken into consideration, to witness what Cam Newton has done under pressure in the fourth quarter with guys that he had available to them, because Greg Olsen is no Rob Gronkowski.
Right.
Kelvin Benjamin is no Junior.
Greg Olsen is pretty great.
Yeah, he is.
Listen, he's a friend of the show. He's very good. Nobody's knocking him, but he's a tight end. Your receivers has been this dude Funches along with Ted Ginn Jr.
And Cotchery was
old, but older. You know, Jet. He was. It was a long time ago.
Better.
It was a long time ago when he was with the Jets and he was with the Steelers. Now he's with Carolina. We respect him. He's no scrub. But I'm just saying, the requisite weapons combined with the system, combined with Tom Brady being that dude, all those things taken into consideration. Yet we sit up here today and there is one undefeated team in the National Football League, and that would happen to be
that drive in Seattle when he hits the post.
But everybody's been doing that to Seattle. They've blown 5 fourth-quarter leads this year.
All I'm saying,
that's a fourth-quarter comeback. And we're not saying Tom Brady's not the man. He's the man, but just not right now.
That comeback yesterday was a joy to watch, but it came, and you guys are leaping to conclusions here, off a game against the worst by far defense in the National Football League, the New Orleans Saints. Okay, and they barely beat the Saints the first time in Carolina. Josh Norman had to intercept a pass in the end zone that looked like it had touchdown written all over it and game winner, right? So, and I'll remind you, within the comeback yesterday, Cam, and I don't think we have this play geared up, so forgive me for this, control room and Brian, but his little flip on fourth down to Greg Olsen, I thought that it hit the carpet. I wouldn't have given that to him because the nose of the ball hit the carpet even though he got his hands on it. So I don't think that the comeback should have been a comeback. I think it should have ended right there.
You can control the ball. I can still hit carpet,
no, but it
as
looked
long
like
as you
he
control
used the
it.
carpet to catch the ball. That's what it looked like to me. Cam sort of short-armed it and flipped it, the little toss.
Yeah, the little pass, little basketball pass.
Yeah.
One from one MVP to, like another.
Maybe
like
another.
Steph.
Yeah. That's just me.
Cam versus Brady, it's heating up. Eric, thanks so much for being with us. It was fun as always. Monday we'll do this again, and it'll be a different scenario, I'm sure.
You need to move out of the city of San Diego.
You know what? I'm thinking about that. Yeah, I'm thinking about that.
They look so bad.
San Diego State, the Aztecs got a big win against Air Force, though. So I'm going to just
listen. They look
you got the best weather in the country.
The San Diego Chargers look so bad.
They're bad.
People should think about relocating.
The people should relocate, not the team. You're saying?
No, I'm saying the people should abandon the team and leave the team there.
No.
All right, we got to save that. So yesterday, the Jets and Giants rivalry turned up a notch when Brandon Marshall and Cullen Jenkins almost got into an altercation before halftime. Marshall says Jenkins dissed his wife, calling her his girl and implying he may have multiple women as opposed to being married. Marshall had to be restrained from Jenkins, from going after him. Here's what he said about the incident.
I believe in trash talk, and some guys get up for that, but some things are off limits. And he made a comment about he said my girl. He didn't know I was married, and I don't care. There's not enough money on this earth for someone to disrespect my wife, and I just try to take it out in between the lines. I love my wife, she Marshall, and I will fight to the end for her. So there you go, baby. He's 500 pounds, and I went after him for you. Zink. No, but he's a good sport, man. I appreciate that he apologized. He didn't know.
Family and money, don't talk about those two things, right, Stephen A.? Did Jenkins cross the line, though?
I don't think so. What I would say is, number one, it seems like Brandon Marshall was trying to get in good with the wife, which there is no knock there whatsoever. That's
I can't blame him.
That's wise on his part, okay?
Happy wife, happy life.
But having said all of that, I was at a loss as to what was said that was so offensive. Was it the comment that he said your girl because he didn't know you were married?
Well, I'm sure there's more to that.
Well, I'm just saying, I'm just going by what he said.
Yeah.
I mean, it didn't really make sense to me because if he didn't know you were married and he said your girl, well, what did he say about your girl?
What's the difference in the girl or the wife?
I don't know.
Some information
I don't
in
know.
this dialogue.
I will say this to you. You can cross the line. You know, all of this stuff, trash talking is trash talking. But there are places that you can go that you have no business going. You ain't going to find it in the rule book. It ain't written down, but there are man codes that come along with it. There are certain things you know you need not say. It could be about somebody's wife or it could be about somebody's mother. There are lines that you don't cross. And when you cross those lines, it opens itself to anything, particularly when you're dealing with the wrong person. Now, all I could do is go back to my personal experiences covering cats in the NBA. I'm not going to mention their names, but I know guys that played in the NBA that I actually admired the way that they handled it. When somebody crossed the line and they said something or did something that was disrespectful and everyone knew was crossing the line, they would sit up there and be like this, I'm going to see you. I ain't going to do it on the court where I'm going to get fined. I'm going to catch you after the game or I'm going to catch you after the season. I remember one time when one particular player literally was petrified and walked around the league begging dudes. I'll even tell you who he was begging dudes about. It was about Derek Coleman. I won't embarrass the dude that was petrified, but DC, my man Derek Coleman, knows exactly who I'm talking about. You had a dude that was literally walking around league-wide begging people to help him to prevent Derek Coleman from whipping his butt because he was disrespectful and had crossed the line and he thought that he was going to get away with it because he was on the court. And if you're on the court, teammates are going to come to your defense and stuff like that. Derek Coleman knew that, so he was always about, I'll see you after. Charles Oakley was all about, I'll see you after. And that was the thing. The only person that I ever saw win in D.C. during a game was Corliss Williamson, and he tried to sucker punch him. I was courtside in Sacramento back in the early 2000s when this happened. And even though I like Big Nasty Corliss Williamson, he regretted that severely because Derek Coleman dealt with him there.
I'd give him a shot against Derek off the court.
Corliss Williamson?
I would.
Well, what I would say to you is good luck with that.
Okay. I would tell you good luck with
I'm
that.
just telling you something right now. There's certain people that you don't mess with.
I know.
DC was one of them. Charles Oakley was another. There's a reason why Michael Jordan loves that brother. Let me tell you something. There's certain dudes that you don't mess with. All I'm saying is there are lines. There are unwritten rules. You ain't going to find in the rule book.
I got it.
You don't cross certain things. And if you cross that with Brandon Marshall, that's a problem.
And as you well know, Carmelo was waiting at the bus for KG. Remember that?
Yes.
All right, just for the record.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Now, I get you about the code, but this is just my code, and from all my years of covering, to me, when it comes to trash talk, nothing is out of bounds to me. That all is fair in love and football, or love in pro basketball, or love in pro baseball, or hockey.
Or war.
It's just what it is. And look, it's the old silly expression about sticks and stones can break your bones, but words can never hurt you. That's what you have to adopt here, because to me, you either ignore it or you laugh at it, as ugly and personal as it might get, or you channel your anger into your performance. But in this case, if you do let it get to you the way Brandon let it get to him, and again, they did obviously pull off the win in overtime, but if you lose your cool and your composure, you have lost, because that is the goal of most of this trash talk. So this is just me, and I've heard my fair share of things off the court. You just go on because you can't win it, to me. That's just me. You can't win it. And so you're going to get even. How are you going to get even? I don't know. I just let it go. I laugh it off.
I'm going to give you cover here.
All right.
What I mean by saying that is that you're saying the way it should be. I'm talking about the way it is. So you're right when you say this is the way it should be. I am telling you that that ain't necessarily the way it is. With certain people, you cross a line, ain't no coming back from that.
Agreed.
And you can't do that. And especially when it's certain codes that are violated. Now, I'm not getting into KG and Melo. That's their business. But what I would remind you, since you brought it up, keep in mind that the police, NYPD, combined with Madison Square Garden security, along with Mike Woodson and coaches, had to come collectively to get Carmelo away from the bus where he was waiting. That's how serious that was. Now, there were people league-wide, hanger-ons, friends, managers, and all this stuff. You know what they all said? Man, we didn't blame them. You got to handle that. There's certain things that cannot fly. Now,
do you think it ever got handled?
Well, it got handled, but legitimate.
Do they have any relationship left?
No, but it's nothing. I mean, it was, without getting into it, the fact of the matter is a misunderstanding and all of that. So that's all it was. But what I'm trying to say to you is that's entirely different than somebody saying, yeah, I disrespected you, so what? What you going to do about it? Now, I'm not trying to sit there, and I don't want to give this impression that it's the NBA, but it's not the NFL. It's baseball, it's basketball, it's football, it's hockey. No matter, to a lesser degree, it's hockey when they allowed you to fight on the ice. You see, so you could handle it then. But without the fighting, then you're going to handle it off the rail. I'm just saying to you, when you sit there and say all is fair, I'm saying to you, you're talking about the way it should be. I'm telling you the way it is. You cannot do certain things. We'll sit up here on a radio, on a television show, and we're debating right here on First Take. If you notice, there's certain lines that I never cross because I don't want to just be right. I want to be righteous. I want people to understand that there's a line I would never cross because I understand that there's certain man rules that if you violate, you got a right to roll up on me and say that's a problem. We're going to handle this.
We're on live national TV. This is like man-to-man on the field.
What I'm saying to you is that we're on live national TV, and even I understand sitting in here where it's my job to call it like I see it, that there's certain lines that you don't cross because as a man, you have to understand it. So if I understand that you're playing in between the lines, it is expected that you understand it. And if you don't understand it, they will make you understand it. And that's what I'm saying.
After Tom Brady and the Patriots suffered their first two-game losing streak since 2012, the top of the AFC was shaken up yesterday. With three teams at 10-2, the Bengals now sit in the top spot thanks to their tiebreaker advantage, and the Broncos are at number 2, and the Pats have now lost 2 in a row, falling all the way to the third seed in the AFC. Stephen A., make sense of this for us. Who is the favorite in the AFC now?
Well, I think you have to assume it's still going to be the Patriots because you're surmising that Gronkowski and Edelman will be back come playoff time, at least one of them, in all likelihood, both. So you certainly have to give the Patriots the edge because of their continuity with Belichick and Brady. Having said all of that, I still give Denver the edge over Cincinnati as the biggest threat to the Patriots because Brock Osweiler, at the very least, has them running the football better, and he's a bigger threat in terms of your wideouts because he has the arm strength to throw outside the numbers, and that defense is big time. Cincinnati can't be ignored because they've been a model of consistency for the most part throughout this year. But I'm going to tell you the dark horse in all of this is the Pittsburgh Steelers because I think the Pittsburgh Steelers are capable of averaging 35 to 40 a game against anybody. With Big Ben Roethlisberger, Heath Miller missed his first. He only missed 8 games in his career. He missed his first game in years last night. He'll be back at some point. So you've got a tight end. You've got wideouts in Brown, Bryant, and Wheaton. You've got a first-string quarterback who's supposed to be second-string in D'Angelo Williams, but only because Le'Veon Bell is out. And their offensive line is coming together, and I believe is doing a better job of protecting Big Ben Roethlisberger. Not to mention the fact that although their secondary is abhorrent, their front seven can do some things from time to time in terms of getting to the passer. I think the Steelers can bend a lot. But in terms of breaking, I think that the offense is capable of offsetting their flagrant deficiencies in their secondary. So I'm of the mindset that the Steelers are the dark horse. The divisional winners are the obvious ones to look at. But I think that the team to watch out for New England are the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah. On this one, we agree. I rank these teams on who's your quarterback as to how big a threat you are to Tom Brady and the New England Patriots.
Fair enough.
I'm sorry. I don't yet fear Andy Dalton, even if they're playing at home against New England in a playoff game. I don't fear Brock Osweiler, and it looks like they're going that direction in Denver. We'll see how that plays out when Peyton says he's ready to play. It looks to me like it's going to be Brock Osweiler. Remember, Patriots were up 21-7, fourth quarter in the snow. A rookie free agent drops a punt, and all of a sudden the sky fell in at Mile High on the New England Patriots, and they lost Gronkowski. So I still think New England could beat Brock Osweiler in Denver if that was required. The two wild card teams right now are Kansas City and the Jets. I don't fear either quarterback in either case, but I do fear the one team that's looking on the outside, looking in right now at 7-5. New England does not have, Pittsburgh does not have the conference record tiebreakers, so it's out at 7-5 right now. That could change, probably will change. But listen, Roethlisberger and those weapons, last night it was just a sight to behold. It's not the greatest show on turf.
It was against Indy.
It's the greatest show in the sky because he just stands back there and just bombs away to any of his. He's got deep speed everywhere. There are four guys who can get behind you, and that's pretty hard to play for anybody.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, Antonio Brown, be careful of jumping into the low post, exposing yourself along the way. That's just not wise. But
didn't work out.
It didn't work out.
Yeah.
It didn't work out.
No.
Well, you're just hopeful that everything will come together. I just think that their defense, the secondary, I can't believe in it but so much. But if there's an offense that can offset it, it's this. And Brock Osweiler, 16-26, 166 yards yesterday. Everybody's been raving about him. Relatively pedestrian performance.
I need to see more from him. All right. Dallas at Washington. Stephen A., who wins?
I'm going with the Redskins. I'm going with Kirk Cousins and the Redskins. I know Jordan Reed, Niles Paulson, all of these guys are out, but I think the Redskins win a game like tonight. The division is in their hand. The nation's capital is stirring. I'm going to roll with Kirk Cousins to beat the hapless Cowboys.
Molly, who you got?
Matt Castle or Kellen Moore? I'm rolling with the Cowboys.
You're rolling with the Cowboys?
Yeah, the Cowboys on Monday Night Football.
All I can say is Washington should win.
Really? But you're not going to make
How
it.
about the Cowboys?
That's just
He's
weak.
loyal.
I'm out. But you can't even make a prediction. It's a scaredy cat. Skip the scared.
Bye, guys. Thanks for hanging with us. Appreciate you listening to the podcast. First Take weekdays at 10 a.m. Eastern, in the rear at 1 p.m. Eastern on ESPN2.